Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Amaazen Outdoors. This podcast is being presented by Upland Outfitters, home of the Relentless pants, man. Those things are awesome. I had them out this week, and I pretty much, since I started the partnership with Jason, have been wearing those pants out anytime over the summer here where I had to do any work at the farm or dog training. I've even had them on the boat a little bit. They are tough as nails. I have yet to see a pull 'em thread. I've been in some nasty briars. They really held up a lot better than I thought. I can't recommend them enough. Hunting season is around the corner. Make sure you use discount code Amaazen, and I believe Jason is still offering 20% off on the Relentless pants. So pick up a pair before hunting season is upon us, and you're out in the woods with a ripped up pair of pants and sweating, unnecessarily, because Jason's pants and the Relentless pants are top notch and breathable, light. So you're going to want them this early season. Make sure you get them now. I also have a quick announcement. We've got another kind of temporary partnership with Chippewa River Custom Rods. Tom is going to be offering 10% off with discount code Amaazen 10, Amaazen 10, and it's all caps. If you decide to call him for a custom rod, just make sure you tell him that you heard about custom rods on Amaazen Outdoors podcast, and he will make sure that you get hooked up with the discount. All that information for both sponsors and partners are going to be in the show notes, so please support the podcast and these great companies. They are really good partners for the podcast, and I would like to see our listeners support them as well. So look them up, Uplnd Outfitters and Chippewa River Custom Rods. Enjoy today's show. Welcome to Amaazen Outdoors. On this podcast, you will hear about our adventures, chasing all kinds of different game here in the heartland of America. We live and breathe outdoors. We hunt, we fish, and we absolutely love being outside. It is not just a passion, it is a way of life. Episode 2, a conversation with a friend and a hunting partner. In this episode, we sit down and have a conversation with a good friend of mine, Jeff. We hunt all over the Midwest together, spend a lot of time chasing birds in the fall. Listen in as we get into some details. Welcome. This is Amaazen Outdoors. Your host, Brian, here with a good friend of mine, Jeff. Jeff and I, we've become quite good friends over the last couple of years, but I didn't grow up with you, and kind of after I moved to the Twin Cities, we met about halfway through my tenure here in the Twin Cities. So anyways, Jeff and I do a lot of bird hunting in the fall.
Yep.
Probably out of most of the guys I bird hunt with, I think Jeff's the guy I spend the most time in the woods with.
Probably, yeah. We'll spend a lot of time out there, that's for sure.
Yeah, so just to kind of get things kicked off a little bit here, Jeff, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, and other than, we hunt together, I mean, what's your background?
Yeah, so my name is Jeff. I live in the northwest suburbs of the Twin Cities here with my wife and 2 kids and 2 dogs. And I'm a carpenter, so I kind of travel all over the cities for work, and that's kind of what we were doing a little bit here today, actually. So
I suckered him into helping me out.
Yeah, right.
So anyways, we kind of met each other on a Lake of the Woods fishing trip that was coordinated by a mutual friend of mine, and I think you got invited by a mutual friend of yours,
Yep.
who happened to be the mutual friend of kind of all of us.
Yep.
Boy, oh boy, was that an interesting trip.
Yeah, that was one to remember or not remember, one of the two.
I will tell you this: I got invited to go back to, this year, and I declined. I just didn't want to really get involved in any of the shenanigans.
Yeah, that's a perfect word for that.
Well, I can confirm that the person that drank the most on our trip did it again on this past trip, and I think he got into a little scuffle with some folks in Baudette at the bar.
No surprise there, I guess. So. Not surprising.
I think they fished Rocky Point, I think,
Okay.
Or Long Point. I can't remember. I don't get up there enough. Whatever the place is in between Baudette and the hell's far War Road on the west side.
Yep.
That big point. So, anyways, yeah, we met on a sitting in an ice house out on Lake of the Woods, and kind of both.
Realized
we had a few common interests.
Yeah, more probably the hunting aspect of it for me, and kind of you had your first dog who was young at that time, and we're kind of getting back into bird hunting, if I remember correctly. And
yeah, she didn't even make a. I mean, I didn't even hunt that fall. She was.
Right.
I just had got her.
Yep.
So that she was maybe a couple months old at that point.
Yep. Yeah, no, I remember that. So
yeah, and I think that following fall we actually did, you and I, an early.
I think we did
early trip up to.
Yep, did grouse opener, which is always tricky, obviously, with all the leaves and everything like that. And I think we had another trip in there, at least one other one.
Yeah,
for
we hit
grouse,
it pretty hard that
on.
season.
Yep.
Early on.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
which is always
Jesse was kind of coming down at still hunting pretty good.
Yeah.
Full time.
Yeah, he's retired now, so he does no young pup anymore. So he's struggling a little bit, but.
Yeah, I don't think I came up to grouse camp that year, if I recall. I think it was the year after I got invited for the first time, but
well, we've been doing that for 8 years now. I think you've been up on the last 2 years,
3 or 4 now.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
so yeah, we had a couple in there, and had untimely kind of lost a couple dogs in there. One guy didn't replace his dog, and just kind of came down more to we only had 2 dogs and 7-8 guys. And that's kind of tough to really make your time worth it in the woods, and not really have a dog, I guess, for that.
Well, some of those guys though, they don't mind hunting over or not over a dog.
Yeah, no, I know those guys were kind of stuck to walking trails, which, hey, they had a blast with. So, that's ultimately what we're out there to do, is have fun and
go on that big
whether
old
you want to
5-mile hike.
Yep. Yeah. I remember actually that first year they didn't have a dog. They moved a lot of birds, I should say. Didn't kill many, which is fine. I think they moved 18 or 20, and I think they brought home 2 and lost 1, but they were certainly.
That's been kind
shooting.
of the hot area for those guys that haven't had a dog.
Yeah, it's been hit or miss, and it's just a nice wide open trail, and it's you can lose 3 to 4 hours on it. Maybe a little longer if you're getting into birds, but like any other place, it can be hit or miss, and you have good years, you have bad years, you have mediocre, average years, and
the ebbs and flows of the grouse woods.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's seems like some spots are good for a year or two, and then they just kind of fizzle out. And a couple of years later, you always kind of test them to see what they're looking like for the year. And I usually give them once or twice, and if they don't pan out, then kind of just let them rest for the rest of the year, and maybe they'll bounce back or have a good hatch or whatever it may be. So
yeah, I can't say I've got a ton of experience in there. I've always tried to kind of keep that. I try to, during grouse season, especially when I go by myself, I never really go up to that area because I know that, you guys have hunted it, and tried not to rape any of your spots and find some of my own. But I think grouse camp, well, actually, no, this year we didn't even go in there this year. We had a goofy year with the snow.
Yeah, that early, well, I should say mid-October snow kind of messed things up for sure, but the roads were not good in that area, so it's if you don't have some sort of SUV or at a minimum, if not a truck, it can be hard to get in there, and that area is not really on many maps, so it kind of gets overlooked unless you're either a local or a guy who's been there a while. Just it's not something that pops up on any DNR website or in this case the Wisconsin DNR website. So it's been nice that it's kind of stayed insulated from a lot of pressure. Not saying you don't see any guys in there, but
I see a lot of bear hunters in there early in the
season.
Yep,
bear hunters. I did see some deer hunters later this year.
Deer hunters we saw too.
I think I maybe only bumped into 3 other grouse hunters all year.
I don't know that I've ever actually ran across another grouse hunter now that I think about it in those woods. Yeah. I've seen them on the road.
You get the occasional road hunter, it's usually somebody I've seen before or know.
People I've ever ran across in the woods there were deer hunters. Yep. And I see a lot of bear hunters on the road.
A lot of archery hunters, and you get those guys who, especially when they're going to scout or hang a stand, they carry a shotgun, but they're not doing long road trail walks or loops through the woods. It's just kind of, you walk down 20 minutes and see what you see and
they get out of their other work.
Yeah, exactly.
I see a lot of guys riding bikes in there.
That's a lot of bow hunters, again, bear hunters, guys who are checking stuff out. And the nice thing actually about that piece of property is probably 8-10 years ago, they I shouldn't say completely. They had 3 or 4 main roads that went through it, and they shut them all down except for one main one that loops through kind of the heart of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So the days of just really road hunting everything are kind of gone. And again, you still get road hunters, but those birds wise up pretty quick that are off that main trail that you can drive. So it's actually made it really nice for more serious bird hunters, because they're getting you can get to less pressured areas. Yep. And it's some of these walks of you've kind of been forced into, well, I won't be able to do a 30-minute walk or an hour walk. You're kind of in it for a minimum of 2 hours, if not 3.5, which is
it's a half a day sometimes.
Yeah, you're gonna spend a solid morning there. If you're in the woods at 8, it's going to be 11 or noon,
yep.
Probably even 12:30 or 1 before you're back for lunch and hang out for, an hour and a half or 2. And then
what's this lunch stuff? I
suppose you wouldn't know about that. Field lunch for you.
I run them boys pretty hard when they go with me.
No, we've been doing that trip for a while, and it's for that crew of guys, it's a lot more relaxing. I guess a lot of the people I do have up there, family and
your good friends.
Yeah. I had my wife's family come up from the south, and then my wife's dad and my wife, and now our kids who are way too young, but my wife's a trooper.
Start sometime.
Yeah, exactly. My wife's a trooper though. She'll put on the little backpack harness thing and carry him through the trails, and we all hunt pretty close together, so there's no question about a safe shot or anything like that. Or she'll just cut it short and go back to the truck and hang out. But and then those guys that you come up with, those are guys I grew up with, and we all started hunting together when we weren't even able to carry a gun. We were carrying the old Red Ryder BB guns and following our parents around, or our dads, I should say, around. And God, we were probably 8-9 years old when that was happening, and it kind of obviously as age and age comes, you start to get to carry a gun, and a lot of us shot our first birds all together. I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I know. I bet you 4 4 of us in that group shot our first wild pheasants together, which I believe was Iowa.
You guys used to go down to Iowa?
Yeah, one of them had a good connection there from college. Actually, the guy went to Wichita in Kansas, and one of their good friends had a farm in western Iowa, which back in the 80s was heyday of birds. And even I remember the first time we went down there, it was just both our dads hunting, but we were done in an hour and a half. And so that was, something to look forward to, because I think I was 10 or 11 at the time. And
there's rumblings that it's coming back, but it's nothing like the 80s. But
no, an early night. I mean, this would have been mid 90s.
Yeah.
93, 94, 95, 96, somewhere in there.
Never really hunted much in Iowa, but I had a good friend of mine from high school that he went there every year, and he's been going the last couple years again now.
Yep.
Because they've been having decent hunting.
Yeah.
But they do a lot of they kind of hunt over by the Missouri it's the Missouri there, isn't it?
Yeah, Missouri River.
No,
or Nebraska, or
I don't know, whatever it is in that southwestern part of the state. Whatever
I think that's
flows
part
out
of
of
Missouri.
Cedar. Is it Cedar Rapids? No.
Yep.
Yes. No. Cedar Falls.
Could be.
On the way over to...
Not super familiar with Iowa, unfortunately. I kind of know the areas
I
where
drive
I've
through it a lot.
Yep, yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of where I've hunted.
But they used to hunt out in the southwestern part, and they went the last couple of years. And
that was the area that we kind of started off, and then that kind of fizzled out. I remember, it was just the next year, 2 years later, I was able to shoot. And so we had 3 hunters, and 2 of them were still too young to legally carry a shotgun at that time. But we went from seeing a ton of birds and being done in an hour and a half to, I think we shot 3 birds for 3 guys in 2.5 days. So
a little bit more like normal hunting
these
days.
Yeah, kind of. But then actually, as one of the other guys got into hunting, his mom grew up on a farm in not far across the Minnesota-Iowa border, and we were fortunate. They let us hunt. They didn't personally own a lot of property, but they leased a little bit. Sure. And then had really good friends, and those guys were not hunters. And I remember it was a half section of corn. He was planting corn every year, which was kind of odd, but it had dry sloughs scattered throughout the whole thing.
Sure.
And I remember it was the first 3 years we hunted there. I mean, we were, we'd have 8 guys, and so at that time we were allowed 24 birds, and we'd be done by 1 o'clock, so, and that's a lot of poor shooting on some of the adults, and obviously young kids not being able to shoot real effectively, but there were just that many of the opportunities, and
the problem that seems to
it plagues us all at some point.
All over me also.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially on those covey rises.
Yeah. Quail are a little different story, that's for sure. But yeah, we had that's where we kind of grew up and cut our teeth for a long while. There was in Iowa, and I mean, obviously we did Minnesota growing up.
Sure.
At the time, you could if you had a legal guardian with you, you could carry a gun in small game hunts. So we did that, but geez, I think I did that for a couple of years and never pulled the trigger on even a squirrel or anything. It's
very pockety in Minnesota, I've found.
Yeah, and I mean when we were going, it was, if you'd go 45 minutes from home hunting a lot of Scott County stuff that gets
sure
hit pretty hard, and I think
I've kicked a few bushes around that neck of the woods.
Yeah, you'd
see a
be
lot
hard
of hunters.
pressed to, I think, find a bird.
I got one
nowadays.
out of there this year, though.
Yeah. Well, Minnesota had a nice little bump in hatching.
We did. We saw a lot of
and
birds this year, and just in comparison to the last couple that I've been hunting out there.
Yep.
Not that I have a ton of experience, but you drive out and kind of get 3/4 of the way out, and you end up seeing like 30 pheasants in the middle of this snow-covered field, and there isn't CRP for like as far as the eye can see. And you have roosters running around, and then you get out there and you see a few on the road, and you're going, okay, this is different.
Yeah,
this is better.
Yeah, I remember the first time whenever we saw one rooster, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Now, we were squirrel hunting at the time, but we bumped into some guys in the parking lot that had a dog, and we saw them flush that thing a handful of times, and they never shot it or anything. For what reason, I have no idea, but I think that was probably the last pheasant I saw in Minnesota for about 3 years.
But then you and I made a run a couple years ago out.
Yeah, this would have been when I was...
Oh, this was when you were young.
11, 12 years old when all this was happening.
Yeah.
So, yep. Yep. So it's I actually never shot my first wild pheasant in Minnesota until I came back from college with a buddy.
Really?
Well, he was a year younger than I was, and they had gotten into some birds in near a friend's farm from our church. We actually raised a bunch of quail down there, and kind of got to know guys. And we did the openers there, and it was one of those, if you got one bird for 5 people, that was a good day. And but they got into a little pocket of birds, and made good with the farmer. And we went back over my freshman year of college and his senior year of high school, and we saw birds and actually got one. So I was
Nice.
surprised. I would have, seen as how much other hunting I had done. I think most people are like, really, it took you 11 years to shoot a pheasant in Minnesota, but
Well, you got to actually spend some time in the field.
well, yeah, and I mean, no offense to Minnesota, but at that time,
Well, you were going to school out in South Dakota, right?
right? Well, even growing up, when you're in junior high and high school, we had good contacts in Iowa, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was a 2.5 hour drive, and so it's like, wow,
Yeah, you got that.
we're
much
going to
from the
see
Twin
birds
Cities
there, and
to get to Western Minnesota anyway.
correct, yeah, and maybe now it's a little different story. I know that northern part of the state, at least where our old contact was, hasn't been great, but
How those hedgerows and drain tile for all that stuff, has really hindered a lot of different areas in Iowa. I know
Yeah.
for a fact.
Yep.
The cultivation.
Yep.
They really try to utilize that land as much as they can.
they squeeze out every available acre, it seems.
We even see that. We've seen that now the last couple of years, and just the difference in seasons and going to Kansas.
Yep.
Just so you guys know, Jeff's kind of how I got to go to Kansas. He had some family that had a connection, and I got lucky enough to be invited.
Yeah. That was a long road trip, and I didn't want to do that one alone.
Yeah, but
Didn't know what I was going to get myself into, but it started out tough, but we ended up all right, and we've gone back ever since.
yeah,
so.
we've learned a lot of lessons, and I went earlier this year myself. For once, I
Yep.
didn't have old corporate America hanging over my head, and I said, "I'm just gonna point the truck southwest and go."
Yeah.
And it's still public land, late season down there, still very
Yep.
tough. But
Yep.
I
you gotta.
scratched a few out.
Yeah, you definitely got to do your homework and cover a lot of ground, and it's kind of the name of the game, especially when it's not in your backyard and you can visit it 4 or 5 times a year and really know what's going on. So
Yeah, it's
hard to do it from 10, 12 hours away. So
yeah. So that kind of leads us into another topic that we were going to kind of hunt. What is it? I think is this the 4th year that we went to Kansas? 3rd for sure.
Yeah, it was January of 2018. So it's kind of, that one always kind of throws me because
Yeah.
it's that the season goes from 17 and 18, and then you start again in 18. But yeah, so it'd have been, this was our 3rd or 4th year
Yeah.
going down there.
Yep.
So it's still remember that first trip. I know it was like we were talking. It was miserable for the first 2 days.
Yeah, I think
hunting
it took
public
us,
and a couple Minnesota boys not knowing what quail habitat looked like, and
it took us a while to figure that out.
Yeah.
But once we figured it out, I mean, the evidence was there that there were coveys there. Shotgun shells from this season.
feathers and that type of thing from past hunters.
Yep. So it made us feel a little better. It took us about a day to kind of understand what we were looking for to a certain degree. I mean, we were definitely no experts at it, but we had kind of turned the corner, at least from, walking. Hey, there's a tree out there in the middle of that field. Let's go walk out there. And let's work this edge a little bit better. And I think we finally shot. Did we get one? I think you shot one. Maybe I shot one.
It was,
One apiece or something like that.
Yeah, I remember it was.
I remember looking for one of them for a long time.
Yeah, that was my first. Well,
I think it was your
second wild one. First one in Kansas. I'd shot one in Iowa years before that. We found a rogue covey, but yeah, it was it was end of first day, and that was our one covey for the first day and a half. So
it was the end of the second day.
Yeah, I think so.
Because we started kind of much further east, and then we worked our way kind of west.
West
to where
a couple
we were
hours.
Where we're kind of focusing in on.
Yeah, that's kind of where family
we're
had
not gonna
contact, so.
hotspot. It's central Kansas.
Yeah.
There's only a couple big cities, so you can
Yeah.
point your finger at it and pretty much figure things out. But,
Yeah, you mean Southwest Kansas? No, just
yeah.
yeah.
Hey, I drove down there this year.
Yeah.
You don't have to go very far west of where we go, and don't have to go very far south, and it is flat.
Yeah.
And you're not talking about section farms. You're talking about a couple sections.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no roads. It's like, 4 sections all put together, and it's amazing how much ag is down there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different, especially coming from the upper Midwest here, but even from where we hunt, very different. You got a lot of section lines and might have the occasional road that doesn't go through or has got to go around some hills or whatever it may be. But yeah, western part of Kansas, different from the other half, that's for sure.
I'll tell you though, there's something special about that covey rise. I grouse is about the only thing that to me, even rivals it.
Yeah.
That 25 birds getting up at your feet and you're trying to pick one.
Yeah. It can be a challenge, that's for sure.
I thought the last time we went, I think you still had that backup, that 28 gauge semi-auto.
Could have.
Yeah,
probably.
I was almost tempted to ask you for it because having a third shot,
Yeah.
It's nice. I love my double barrel, but
Yeah.
third shot on that covey rise when you can keep 8 of them, shoot 8 of them in a day.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. You always seem to have that straggler too while your gun is cracked, but I think that's part of the fun, I think. So can't kill them all.
I just tend to shoot the second shot too early, and then most of the covey gets up after my second shot, and I'm standing there with 2 shells in my hand going.
Well, especially in those
Damn.
bigger coveys, it's like you get the first little wave, and then you have half a dozen after that seem to get you with your gun broke or something. It seems like it's usually the gun is broken or.
So we normally go in January. That's when we had typically gone the last
the
couple
first
years.
couple years.
Yeah.
I did some December ones just at that time. I know you weren't available.
That's right.
And,
That's right. I remember that now.
And that was fun. That was that was strictly I met family down there, so we were hunting with their contact and obviously that's who you've hunted with when we've been down there, which is always a good time. And I know there was some long trips in there. I mean, driving 12 hours for one day of hunting and alone and turning around. It's a little bit of a forced trip, but at that time, I mean, I don't know what it was like back in its heyday. I mean, I've only heard stories of, those 15, 20, 30 covey days. Well, no, we're not having that, but geez, we're still enough to be happy and go back. And for me, it was worth the day trip. I mean, I wouldn't do it every weekend by any means, but.
Well, I think the first time that we went down, we had hunted at least a day, maybe a day and a half before we shot a bird or two.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I got a pheasant out of that property. I can't remember if that was
the second day. I think it was.
Did we finally get over there late in the first day and shot a bird?
Yeah, because it was after. It was like last hour and a half.
The sun was going down. I remember when we finally found that bird.
I remember we were talking to my uncle, and he was asking, or I should say my wife's uncle, he was asking how we were doing, and we weren't real thrilled, and he's like, well, look for X, Y, and Z, and it was kind of like, there's the spot, but it's 200 yards off the road. What are the odds? And odds were good that night, but it
well, and that was too after we were kind of all pumped up because literally gotten a picture of like a whole tailgate full of birds because they were out there with a pretty good sized group and shot a couple limits of quail, if I remember, or maybe it was a couple limits of pheasant and a bunch of quail, but I remember just seeing a mound of birds going.
Oh, yeah. That was probably their December trip. Yeah. And that was I don't know if they had a dog at that point, honestly. So that was.
No, it would have been like 2017 then that photo would have been taken.
Yep, because we went January 2018. Yep. So just a month before he went, because I think we went like last week into season that first year. So.
Well, and,
just because that was all that work time-wise.
This year was the first time. I went twice this season, and I went once with you. Yep. And we went in December because of the baby was coming.
Yep.
And so we just kind of switched things around. And I will tell you, hunting there was a couple of years in January and hunting public, and then going down in December and hunting public. What a difference! I mean, I felt pretty confident in stepping on public land where, the last couple seasons that we've gone down after that first year of really getting beat up, we made a huge focus on trying to. You did, I know, trying to make some private land connections.
Yeah.
And that was primarily the reason I went back in January, is because I wanted to build my Rolodex of private land contacts, because we found, I mean, it's just so amazing. You go beat around a couple pieces of public not far from where we were hunting with our acquaintance down there, and then step foot onto private land, and it was just
within
like,
a mile, and it's like, wait, what?
I mean, I don't know,
happened?
6-7 coveys on versus none. And not far apart. I mean, you could tell the quail had at least been where, some of the spots that we had hunted on public, but it doesn't take too long for those birds to get shot at a couple times, and they find another fence row to sit in.
Yeah, I mean, some of those, it's, they fly 200 yards and they're on private land, and
they don't get touched all season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't blame, any game animals that way. You keep pressuring them, and they're going to find a place they're not pressured. So,
yep. Yeah. Then that's the nice thing though, as being, northerner, coming from, where we can pretty much go anywhere we want up north in northern Wisconsin or northern Minnesota and grouse hunt. Very large tracts of public, county,
tens of thousands of
company,
acres.
I mean, anything that's available. Going down there's all this land, but it's not. It gives you this appearance that it's not. There's a lot, but the quality of land is, it's not as much as one would think looking at a plots book.
Yeah, and everything changes, from year to year. It's, it looks great on OnX or Google Earth or, satellite or whatever your way of, doing some scouting is. But yeah, ultimately you got to go take a look at it. And, Kansas especially is a little more susceptible to some of the drought stuff. And
it was dry this year. It was.
Yeah, it was.
December wasn't too bad. But
yeah, we had a little moisture at least, which helped, but
when I went back in January, man, it was just a dust bowl.
Yeah. I had some buddies down there right before Thanksgiving, and they had typically hunted Nebraska, and they hunted just kind of west of where you and I do.
That's
about an hour away.
Nebraska's it's on my checklist. I keep hearing things about certain parts of Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, I know these.
Who knows what's going to happen after this frigid cold, though.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been okay. I mean,
hopefully
some of the landowners and contacts have said they're still seeing some birds around. So it's Mother Nature. What can you do? But I know the guy who hunted west of us, who hunted Nebraska. They strictly hunted public, just because it was their first time hunting the state. So they really didn't know what they were getting into, and they hunted a week, and I think they were only able to hunt 3.5 days because they had one day it was raining, another day was like 30-mile-an-hour winds, and so they just used those as scouting days. But they put on the miles. I mean, they drove 60, 70 miles from where they were staying, and I think even he was saying it was, he even asked, is it always this dry? And I said, well, sometimes. And they were saying, when they found absolute perfect habitat, they were finding birds.
Yep.
But they might have to look at, anywhere from 3 to 6 pieces and find one that was decent. And sometimes even at that point, that was just before Thanksgiving. They said, man, some of the coveys were already small, whether they'd been shot up or maybe that was just the roll of the dice. But I know they said they had a number of them they didn't even shoot at. They just took some pictures and go work up a single and get some pictures of the dog, and that was kind of the extent. They didn't want to beat them up too bad or split them up too bad, late in the day or anything like that. So
yeah, when I went back in January, we got into a couple very large coveys that I thought were really good to see for January.
Yeah,
those were on. One was on public. The others were on some private land.
Yeah,
and then I also ran across a couple coveys that were only like 5-6 birds.
Yep.
And it was luckily, I didn't do a whole lot of hitting on that trip myself, but there was quite a few coveys that I just put the gun up and it just like there is not enough here to really blast.
One guy was actually saying, he was asking me about covey size, and I said, our experience is more later in the season, typically January. I think in the 6-8 times I've been down there, it's predominantly January. I think I've had 2 trips in December, but he kind of mentioned that later in the year, if you had 2 smaller coveys on a quarter or a section, they'll link up for the winter. And
Yep.
because he was kind of asking like, well, I'm not seeing what you were talking about. Now, truth be told, I said, well,
2 Januaries ago, I mean, remember that one Phragmites slew?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, it was, I mean, that place over, it's the second landowner, not the family connection.
Oh.
And it's that prime slew,
Yep.
that Phragmites slew.
Yep.
I mean, 2 years ago, it was like you walk in there and they were just all over.
Yeah.
I think you were in there. I was across the street.
And,
I was just like, you're banging away. And I seen two hens that morning. No quail. And I'm just like, bastard.
Well, and that's
banging away.
Yeah,
I think you walked out of there before I even got over there. You had your limit.
Yeah. I think I maybe needed one, but
that is a prime example of how many coveys were in that group of birds.
I legitimately thought I saw 2, only based off of when I walked into that. I remember calling you and I could hear them whistling at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And we got to the first one, and a bulk of that covey all went to my left, and I maybe had 5 or 6 go ahead of me, and we went up another 100 yards and had another 20 birds get up. And so if I were a betting man, I'd say those were 2 different coveys, and then they split up, and we were able to pick up a couple singles here and there. But
there were a lot of birds.
Yeah, and we actually hunted that about 4 weeks later that year, and that was kind of funny. Like they were very spread out. We never had that big covey flush. It was kind of, one of the dogs got away and had kicked up a couple stragglers. But it was just kind of small groups of, I think our biggest group was honestly like 8 at one time.
Really?
But then we had probably 6 or 8 different flushes of 1, 2, 3, single, 5, 8, stuff like that. But we even started looking back on that day, and we figured we still moved 45 quail out of that area.
Wow. So
maybe my numbers aren't quite working up if we only, moved 8 groups or so of stragglers, but there were a lot of them in there, and I take that back. We had more, but yeah, it's not the big covey flushes that we were used to out of that specific piece. But it's fine. They were there, so
we went in there this year.
That changed quite a bit from last year.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where you really have to put your boots on the ground.
Yeah,
and even the spots that you have marked on your Onyx are like, this is prime. Got to hit it at least once a trip.
Mm-hmm.
Even those spots are really, unless you lay eyes on them during the year.
Yeah.
And even from the road, I don't even know that we would have thought that was that thick.
No. That one's a little deceiving.
That one berm back in there.
Yeah.
I mean, we used 2 years ago, I think, you could walk over it, no problem.
Yeah, that berm was always kind of tough, but right behind it, I mean, it was kind of like cane and thinner stuff with some down trees. But yeah, this year is it kochia weed or something like that was 8-9 feet tall, and it was last year it was perfect little strips where it might be 8-10 yards wide.
Can't tell you how many damn birds I lost in that crop.
Yeah, I mean at a point you're just letting them fly, because I don't even know if you shot one if they'd even touch the ground.
Yeah.
Or you'd even be able to find them, and I guess what's the point of that?
I bet you any money if when we went through there this season, those birds just hung tight in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, how many birds do we not even get out?
I remember there were a handful. I had small covey flush by me, and God, I even saw where a bunch of them put down 60 yards ahead of me, or ahead of where they flushed, and you'd go back there, and it's like, okay, there's 15 or 20 of them, and you'd flush 3. It's like they can run around, and
It seemed like every time I put up a covey, I couldn't find any other birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I even let them sit for a while,
Yeah. I just
it was a tough piece.
Dry, tall cover that's,
Yeah.
8, 10, 12 feet tall. And I mean, you can't walk through it. So it's, your dog goes in there, but it was definitely dry. And I think that, affected the dogs to a certain degree.
Yeah,
for sure.
Especially on the down birds.
Yep.
I remember we had hunted a different piece with your uncle, well, Katie's uncle, but I left both my dogs in the truck, and you had Callie, your
the puppy,
younger setter, and I mean, I dropped the damn thing in Bront grass, ankle high.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can't your dog find that? I was giving you crap, I mean, I wasn't really upset or anything, but I walking away from that one was a little.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, when it's stone dead and it's within 20 yards, it's like.
And I didn't even
not help but go back and look and look.
I didn't even take my eyes off of where the damn thing. I shot it and I went right over by it, and it was like it must. The only thing I can come up with is all the birds that I had hit this season. I must have not hit them as good as I thought I did, and it must have ran on me. I know a couple of pheasants on this other trip that I took down.
Yeah.
I mean, drop two of them in a freaking cornfield that doesn't have any dirt. I mean, all the, stalks and everything have blown out, and it's so damn dry. There's nothing to hold on. I mean, it's just dirt.
Yeah.
I watched it hit the ground, seen the dirt fly, and I went around the plum thicket because we, thought maybe get another covey of quail and head out that way into the wind, and I 2 minutes later, circle around and damn thing's gone.
Yeah.
And then the dogs go running up the fence line, and I don't know, about 40 yards in front of me, freaking rooster gets up, and it didn't look like it was shot at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that was pretty frustrating for me.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first year we had just split apart, and I went back to get a truck, and then you guys found the covey of quail right along the road.
Oh yeah.
And somebody dropped one in a plowed field.
Yep.
Like stone dead, and we went back and looked for that thing with the dogs.
Yep.
Granted we only had 2 of them at the time, but I mean plowed field, stone dead. We looked for a half hour and never found the thing.
Yeah.
So who knows?
And Milo sometimes too. They there's a lot of cover underneath.
Oh yeah.
Milo.
Yeah. And they hunker down, and
it's amazing. I'd seen him running this year in that Milo, and on that one piece where, I think it was the piece that we had all 3 dogs point.
Oh yeah.
And I think then we did a little loop prior to that. Maybe it was one of the stops before or after, but I seen him running down the Milo. They're coming, Jeff.
Yeah.
And they just run. I mean, it's amazing how fast those little quail can run. They look like little.
Yeah. Like mice running through that stuff. You can chase them, but they get into any cover over knee high. Good luck without a dog. So
I gotta say, out of all the birds I've hunted, which isn't a lot, but I've hunted everything here in the Midwest that you can hunt. And that Bob White covey rise it flips my trigger, man.
Oh yeah.
If I could, I'd love to hunt those birds all season long.
Yeah. I mean,
and they taste good too.
Oh yeah, they are very tasty little birds. That's for sure. You need quite a few of them, but they're definitely good.
2 of them's a good meal for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if
must eat a little more than you.
Well, it depends. If you're gonna breast them out and just use the breasts, I need a couple.
Yeah.
But I actually plucked a couple of them that I brought home on this January trip, and I did a little bacon wrap with them.
Oh yeah.
And grilled them.
Yep.
And they were really, really good.
Yeah.
Those I could have ate a third one.
I would say you can't go wrong with wrapping anything in bacon.
No.
But yeah, I think again, coming from up here, 90% of our hunting is, well, for me is grouse and woodcock, and pheasants are just kind of at this point in my life, just kind of, if they're there, great. But without going to Kansas or South Dakota, I don't really try for them, but
it was worth it this season.
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of guys.
If even just a day trip, I'm to kill a Saturday or something. If you have the dogs available, it was worth it this season. Both times I went out to Western, I went out for the opener, and then I went out one day before it closed.
Okay.
And both times I could have shot my limit.
Yeah.
If I could have hit anything.
Yeah. I heard. I had a buddy got his daughter back into, or I shouldn't say back into, but got her out hunting quite a bit. And obviously with the whole COVID thing, her big thing was dance, and she didn't
shut down.
Yeah, wasn't doing that. And actually his wife, her mom owns the studio, so
Bummer.
that wasn't happening. But man, they have a dog who is 8 or 9 years old. He intended to use it for a hunting dog, just never did it. And so he's like, this is basically its first experience. But they hit Iowa twice.
Really?
And then they hit Minnesota 3 times, and she got her first bird. And he was pleasantly surprised. Even in Iowa, it was early on while there was still some standing corn, but he's like, we moved a dozen to 2 dozen birds. And he's like, it never killed anything. They got the one bird all year. And he had a few that should have had, but that's anybody. So
you got a setter. I got German short-haired pointers. There's other birds that are more cooperative to work with pointing dogs.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. You can hunt pheasants easily with pointing dogs, but I think guys that have close ranging labs or cocker spaniels or springers, I think it lends itself a little better to them.
Later season they get a little jumpy. I know that was one thing he said is
how many times have we had our dogs just running birds and
and you get so many of them, it's hard for a pointer to pick out one bird instead of 20 that are running. But
my little one, when I went to Kansas this last time, we had a good, we closed out the trip one last morning, and she was pretty well beat down, a couple days of hunting already, and she was just so drunk on birds, Mel, this one field. I swear she wouldn't even get her to run in full speed. She'd slam on point, and she'd sneak in, and sure as not, walk over. There's roost site there, but she was just she was so drunk on birds in that field that's a challenge, because you gotta. I found though too that the pointing dogs, they really like to run and run and run. I got pretty big ranging dogs, not huge, but a little more rangy than Callie's.
Yeah, she's got
some legs behind her.
Yeah, I mean she's puppy too. This is really her first year. I mean last year she was 4 months, 16, 17 weeks at the beginning of the season. So that was basically just getting her used to riding in a car, and we'd take her on little walks, and we did do a little shooting over her, but nothing real. But
so there's got a couple other things going on this year. Obviously we've got a lot of history in bird hunting. You got a new baby in the house.
Yeah.
What's your fall looking like? You got anything planned yet?
Well, yes and no. I guess I never really plan anything, only because for the last 10 years every fall's the same, you know, mid-October to
Jeff stops taking work.
Yeah. I'm fortunate to be able to do that, but it's basically, first, second weekend in October till first weekend in November is grouse hunting and woodcock hunting. Usually take a week off.
Do a little big game hunting this fall, you think?
If I get drawn, if not, we'll still go out to where we deer hunt. That's what I did this year. I didn't get drawn, so we went and.
You went Sharpie hunting or something?
Yeah, there were Sharpies, prairie chickens, pheasants. Saw a lot of birds. We had my buddy's young setter who was 9 months old, so it was
two young dogs.
And then mine who they've never smelt them, but they were incredibly jumpy. I mean, we got some shooting, little longer shots than probably comfortable with, but when you see 80 to 100 of them, and a lot of them are jumping at that 150 to 200, not even
sounds like
to the dog's fault
to me.
Yeah, right. I mean, not even to the dog's fault. It's just that's what happened.
And you guys went November, right?
Yeah. So it was late season. I had a number of people tell me, good luck. Are you going to be jumpy? I'm like, yep. But I deer hunt the area. I've done it, for the last 9 years, and we'd always see birds in the area. So I told the guys when we went out, I was like, we will see birds. I have no idea if we'll be able to kill any of them or, get real close. But the first morning we got one and lost it. It was real early, and, we were trying to be cognizant. It was also deer opener in South Dakota and the area we were, and so we were trying to really let them have kind of first dibs and kind of hunted the skirts of it, which was fine because
Sometimes
that's where
I swear you're way more ethical than me.
Well, I mean, where the deer hunters go, it's not bird country.
I'm giving you crap.
Yeah, no, I know. We kind of stick up on the hills, but got one and lost it, and then we didn't have the dogs. We were actually past shooting at that point because it was
sitting in between some feed.
Not even feed, just an area. It's honestly the last 9 years I've been there, we've had them fly over our head as we're glassing deer. So it's like, well, there's a good option to start. But came back with the dogs, and my buddy who shot it took his dog over there and never even got birdie. And we kind of worked a different area, and we moved a bunch of birds, but they were jumpy. Again, not even to the dog's fault. They just But you're also going up and down a lot of hills. I mean, what's 1 mile on a plat book is probably 2.5 of a lot of up and down, and your thighs are definitely burning after the first little bit. And I think those guys were a little taken back to how much work this was going to be, and we end up finding some areas that were a little flatter and a little more gentle terrain. Where we actually got into a lot of prairie chickens, and had some other little pockets where we got into a bunch of pheasants, and didn't shoot great, but for me it was great because I had another guy with me who had a pup too, but didn't bring it out just because it was way too young. Yeah. And we had a number of nice points, and a lot of hens, and a lot of point and relocate type stuff, and inevitably it's a rooster that gets up at 60 yards, but it's the dog was doing what it was supposed to do, and for her first outing on in those fields, specifically targeting pheasants, I was very happy and with the way she did, and I wasn't happy the way we shot, but
that was my whole season. I'm gonna do a little sporting clays with the 28 gauge this year. Just, I don't know. I've always felt really good, but I don't know. This season, for some reason, I just felt like I couldn't hit anything. And it was.
Who knows?
Normally, it's like, well, I go through a day or two, and then I have a really good day. I had very few really good days this season. And I hunted a lot.
I've had a tough time with grouse the last 2 years. I'm usually fairly good on those, but it's been tricky. But I think the last 2 years is trying to either have a puppy out and not really caring about killing a bird her first year, and then this year really trying to focus on her working them correctly and more importantly, handling the best she could given the circumstances. The bird is, killing the bird is truly secondary at that point, and you still want to reward and make the gun go boom, let them know they did what they were supposed to do, but grouse are not easy birds either, so it's
no, they're one of the more tricky ones. That's for certain.
And again, like we talked about before, kind of that early snow in October really kind of threw, I think, a lot of people for loops, but
that didn't throw me for a loop.
I mean, I had areas that were typically good that were marginal or just not good. It's just like, we'll just hunted them once or twice, and it's like, nope.
I found that first bird, and I ripped open that, check what was in its, in the crop, and I sent him elderberries.
Sure.
And so I knew, elderberry edge, or elder edge, and then we had the snow, so it was just like anytime I could find pine trees.
Little scrubby pines. Stuff like that.
And they didn't like the pine plantations.
No.
But any of that moderate, I mean, if it had boughs on it that were eye level or lower, it seemed like they really liked it. And then right on them elder edges where they had that food source for them.
Good transition cover and good thermal cover.
Where they normally are, but they needed something a little bit more heavy than stem density, really.
They
needed those boughs.
You throw snow on that stuff, and what you thought was pretty thick looks a little thinner pretty quick too, and
very quickly.
So you can still focus on those areas. You just where's maybe the thicker cover, where's maybe the a few more pines.
It's kind of my big lesson for the season. Is like, Yeah, animals, they all need food, water, cover, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's what we're always looking for as hunters, to try to find a new spot. But there was other things that conditionally, one of them always seemed to outweigh the other.
Yeah.
Kansas, water was so important in January.
Yeah.
So it was like I needed food, water, and cover, but I had to have open water. And when I was going in January, there was a lot of ice on anything that was standing still.
Sure.
It was moving water, man. I found a lot of coveys by moving water.
Yeah, little creeks.
It was food, cover, and water all within like 100 yards of each other. And it was just every time I had that mix, we moved birds.
Yep.
Well, same thing with the grouse camp this year. It was like when that snow hit, it was if I had all of those three things mixed together, pines, alders, and more of that kind of middle season cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
Water wasn't so important because they had all the snow around it. And then the woods were moist at that point during the year. So there was freaking standing water in just about every hole. Yeah. In some of those spots because we were hunting on those alder edges.
Yeah.
So,
they're always damp, it seems.
So I wasn't really so concerned about water, but cover was the most important part.
Yep.
And for grouse camp. So
yeah, this year definitely was different. I mean, I'm a big believer in not necessarily, popple or all, that type of stuff, but you kind of mentioned it before, like that stem density. I mean, I have two of my better spots are actually predominantly maple, with creek or alder, or, stuff that's, within 100, 200 yards. I mean, they'll fly that far or walk that far in their daily routines or even couple day routines. But
I think that spot behind that one gravel pit, that's all maple back in there with little pockets of poplar.
Yep.
And
that one's kind of a long walk, a lot of just stuff that doesn't look great, but there's just, it's pockety. I mean, and that's,
I wanted to go hunt that little cedar swamp down in there when we had that snow. And
I did walk up that this year, and we moved not in the cedars, but probably 100 yards out. The puppy hit point, and
on the left side or right side?
Both. She actually pointed on the right. A bird got up on the left, so she broke. Then a bird got up 30 yards ahead of her from, I presume that was the bird she was pointing. Then another one got up 70 yards out. But there was a whole little back area that's kind of low, got a great mix of cover. It's kind of got that typical classic, Northwoods, not alders, but popples and aspen. Never moved a bird out of that. I know you had good luck there. I think 2 years ago you moved a boatload of them. But if you keep going back from that, there's just good real viney and just nice scrub pines.
There's
mixed
that
with
one cut way back in there that was it was total junk. I mean, you couldn't walk through it 2 years ago.
No,
I didn't get to it this year.
I did walk it this year. I never moved a bird in that whole back area. So it was kind of, again, maybe it was the snow. I'm trying to think. I maybe saw only one set of tracks too.
Yeah, I didn't hunt back in there at all this season.
I
skirted the edge on the South Road. One little spot I hunted. That was the only place I got. Everything else I hunted was south and east of there.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. I even made it all the way up almost well, it's way far away, but I almost made it to Clam Falls.
Yeah, all up in Clam Lake there,
Clam Lake. Clam Lake.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a drive, that's for sure.
Ran across a deer hunter up there on the National Forest Road, and he was. This was during grouse camp. He was saying that 14 dogs had already been killed by wolves up there.
Ooh,
at that point during the season, and I was bear hunters as well.
Right. Seems like it's predominantly.
It only took them about 3 days to wipe them out over there last week.
Yeah, they reached that quota pretty quick, that's for sure.
It's nice to see. It gives me a little bit more confidence walking in the woods. There was starting to become a lot of wolves in that, just in general in northern Wisconsin.
Yeah. I mean, we've been up there 18, 19 years now. I've personally only ever seen one wolf. Every year we see tracks. But it's always kind of shocking when you talk to. We've got a number of friends up there, and they're pretty much bow hunters, deer hunters, that type of thing. And
They see them a lot more than we do.
well, I was going to say their trail cams are just, it's like, geez, I hunt a quarter mile from there.
Yep.
It's like, I've walked that trail before, and they're like, yep, that night, you know, here's 4 different wolves, you know, right there. And so, I mean, yeah, it's always kind of in the back of your mind. I mean, I've never been
I never let it
scared.
Yeah, I never let it stop me from going.
No.
But
No.
it's always on my mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I mean, no matter where you are, I mean, even if it's, you know, in Kansas, it's
Rattlesnakes or whatever it is.
snakes, porcupines, raccoons, you know, in some of these areas, you know, bobcats, and you know, you know, most of the time they're going to be more scared of you and the dog, but you know, it's an unpleasant experience when it just takes the once, you know. And we got into a porcupine this year, and
Did you?
yeah, in South Dakota, actually, in the middle of a CRP field, and
Did you get any issues?
yeah, the puppy got hit.
Oh, Kelly did. Huh?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she didn't even go after it. She'd kind of, you know, we'd flushed a couple hens. It was real windy, and she'd kind of hit point, and I thought, okay, you know, here we go. And she relocated, and I think she just ran. And I mean, I never even heard a yip. I just saw her and noticed she had a little beard of quills, and yeah, we probably
Not in the mouth or anything?
the chin, chest, and legs. But we pulled probably 50, 60, 70 of them. So, but she did good. I mean, it was, you know, but we never found the porcupine. We see more of them up grouse hunting, but they've always been up in trees, honestly, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet up there. And so they're never an issue, but
That's
I'm sure all time
thing
will come.
have yet to encounter in the woods.
Yeah.
Knock on wood on that
Yeah.
one.
Well, actually, during grouse camp this year, one of the guys, Jason, with his puppy, ran into one. He ended up shooting it because the dog was, you know, wasn't on it. But it being a puppy, he didn't have 100% confidence that he was going to be able to call it off, and it was right in the middle of the trail, and the dog was coming, and so he decided to
Got rid of one of them for us.
yeah, and I think I walked that trail a couple weeks later, and I never saw it, but who knows what ate it, or, you know, who knows. But
So you got no big hunting plans for this fall? Like there's no, I'm not new destination on the list or anything like that?
no, you know, Wisconsin, South Dakota, whether that's big game or if we don't get drawn for deer, we'll go out for a shortened trip and bird hunt, and then Kansas will be there.
Yep.
Those aren't even a question.
When are we going to add Arizona to the list?
Well, soon.
Yeah,
you know, this year might be a little tough on me here, but that's
Well, you know, we can go in February.
yeah. I guess I'd be a little hesitant bringing the dogs down there, especially being stuck up here. They're just not used to that 70, 80 degree weather. You know, for me personally, at any point.
Yeah, you got a setter too, long
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah, I mean, you always trim them up, but they're just, you know, it's
Yeah,
a different beast. It's a
I
different
don't know that
animal.
I'm so worried about, you know, the heat, but I got to talk to some guys. The whole snake thing,
Yeah.
you know, and it depends on where you go. If you're hunting gambles and merms, I don't. If you're hunting some of that snow-covered area, that higher mountain desert, I don't know how much they're out, but you know, you get into the scale quail country, and I mean that's rattlesnake country all day long.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I talked to a guy this year who's been down there. He hasn't been down there a ton, but he goes for 10 to 14 days. And so I think he's been doing that the last 4 or 5 years. So he's maybe got at least one trip a year. He might have had 2 one year, but they haven't run into any there.
Well, I'm hopefully be able to tell you how that is this upcoming season.
Yeah.
We'll see if I can get the RV and
Yeah.
a travel trailer and go ahead, spend a month down that way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it'd be fun. I know there's had invites. It's just right now it's tough. I mean,
You got 2 young kids.
yeah,
so.
you know, a 2.5-year-old and a 6-week-old now, and last year was a pregnant wife, you know, all season, and
Yeah.
you know, I feel like I do enough hunting to.
You do.
Right now, I gotta pick what's most important, and down the road we'll add trips, hopefully. So
Out of all the guys I know, you're the only one that really kind of hunts as much as I do.
yeah,
You know, and I'm kind of amazed that when the first baby came around, and life's gonna change for Jeff. It didn't. I was really surprised.
Not much.
Yeah,
Nope.
no, you really got away, at least to hunt as much as I more than I thought you would.
Oh
So,
yeah. Well, this year hasn't changed, but who knows? Maybe this year with 2. But we're lucky her parents live close, and they've always been really good about pitching in and helping out, and they enjoy it, and it's nice to have them, wanting and willing, and your grandkids get to see your grandpa and grandma, so it's perfect.
Why
so
not, right?
yeah, you're not going to say no to that. So, but yeah, no, nothing out of the ordinary this year. Just kind of the standard trips this year, and
Maybe I can bug you early in September we'll see what Montana does, but
yeah,
sage grouse really, I want to go. I just want to go. I
Yeah,
want to give it a
it would
shot,
be
man.
nice.
It's a really unique bird, and
Yeah.
after some of the reports from last season, they seem to be doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to give it a shot,
Yeah.
and that early season sharptail and Hungarian partridge
yep,
hunting, that really kind of trips my trigger.
yeah,
It's about the closest thing. Those Huns are covey birds. So
Yeah.
I really would
Yeah.
love to see a big covey rise of those.
oh yeah. And I
have a
think
feeling
if
I
you
might
time
get
it right,
quite addicted.
yeah, that's the problem. It's focus on a couple birds here, but I think if you time it right, you can.
You do all 3.
Yeah, it's maybe only one weekend if I remember. I haven't.
I think it's the tail end of the season,
Yeah, for sage grouse, I haven't
which is going to
looked into it a whole lot, but
Yeah. Well, I can't remember now. I think I looked. I think it opens up early. I think it's September 1.
yeah, for sage.
Yeah.
But I think your Sharpies and Huns, those are end of September. Oh, is it? Okay.
I think it's all open early
okay.
for September 1.
Yeah, very well could be then.
I gotta, I don't want to tell anybody to go out and start shooting at September 1 here.
Yeah,
but, check your regs and
Yeah,
local
definitely
regulations.
check the regs. Things change.
But yeah, no, I was talking to the wife and a couple other people. I met a guy down in Kansas from Ohio, Indiana, one of the two, and told him about Sharpie hunting out there and sage grouse, and he's like, hey, maybe I'll meet you out there. And
Yeah.
and so I was all pumped about it, and then all of a sudden in the mail, I got my Wisconsin black bear tag. So that unfortunately falls
right
there in the middle of the season. And
Yeah.
so I got to find some kid up north by me that wants to run my bear bait for me so I can go bird hunting.
Yeah, right. Well, find somebody, I'm sure.
I'm sure I can find somebody. But yeah, so that's kind of interesting. That's that, and I really do want to try to get down to the Southwest this season.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to do something a little different on the front end and the back end.
Yeah.
We'll see if I can make it happen.
Yeah, if you play your cards right, you've got 4 or 5 months of hunting season in, North America.
There's a lot of birds that I haven't hunted yet either.
I know.
I wrote down the list in the garage. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah,
I kind of put together the North American Bird Quest.
Slam. Yeah, we were actually, there's a group on Facebook I'm part of, and a bunch of guys were just kind of curious about that. We started putting, the birds together, and there's 20, 30 birds or something like that. And there's a few odd ones that it's like, okay, I guess you can hunt it. And
Himalayan snowcock.
yeah, it's like
it's going to be a once in a lifetime deal.
Yeah.
Try once to hopefully get
right,
one.
Right. Those are
might never happen. Who knows?
Yeah, it's like hunting sheep, I guess, but
yeah, I've 11,000 feet's not that bad.
I just meant the country more.
The country's tough.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
They're up there.
Oh yeah.
Hell, we at 10,000 feet starts to take its toll.
Yeah.
I can hike around the mountains at 8,000 and 9,000 feet, and flatlander, it hurts, but I'd still do it.
Yeah, need some time to acclimate, I guess.
Once you get up a little over that, it hurts. It starts hurting a little more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all pumped here for the snow to melt and for the doodles to start showing back up.
Hopefully not too long now.
Another thing that you kind
4
of
to 6 weeks here or so
opened up for me. I never did this in the spring before, but what a great opportunity to train some young dogs, or
Yeah.
even working with an old dog on some
Yep.
stuff. And
Yeah, I mean, it's a second season, your quote unquote season. I don't mean you can shoot them, but
I like not having the gun.
yeah,
Takes the
it
pressure
forces you to just really focus on the dog. And I mean,
Yep.
I think a lot of guys, especially during season, it's like their dogs are really good to go the first couple weeks, but as you want to shoot that bird, things slip, and
Yep.
it's just a good time to kind of brush up on things. And
I was very guilty of it with the first dog.
oh yeah. I mean, my first two dogs, I was guilty of it, and
It's gotten a little better.
yeah. You try to get better and better with every dog, and hopefully every dog is better. But yeah, it's a great opportunity to take pictures, get out.
Well, we really got
work
into
on
them this
things.
last spring.
Yeah, you did. I didn't. I didn't much, but I don't have great areas by me. Pretty much everything is CRP, and
I was really surprised to find where I find them.
yeah.
And not where one would think they would be.
No,
yeah, I
not
found
like-
a lot of them in CRP actually.
Oh, okay.
But like a sumac on the edge of a rolling hill feature in the CRP.
Yep.
And there'll be a stand of sumac on one side of it.
Yeah.
And they'll be in the sumac.
Yeah.
Or right on that edge.
Yeah, we always used to find them prickly ash.
Yeah.
And
Anything that's got
like
thorns.
you said, I mean, just low, 3 to 5 foot high stuff.
Yep.
And I found a number of them, like you said, in the middle of CRP, just where I am now. I've got a bunch of public land near me, but it's all very tall, mature. We moved one woodcock there one year. I thought the dog was pointing a raccoon or something. I was surprised to see that, but yeah, didn't find anything really last year up by where I was. But you're in probably a better area, and
Yeah, I'm a little closer to some of the bigger
yeah,
flyways, maybe, because of the
yeah.
that particular piece that we'd like to run in the springtime's pretty close to the Mississippi.
Yep. Yeah, they kind of follow those big rivers and
Yep.
don't veer too far. And I just don't really have that near me. And
Yeah,
I did have one guy who said, "Oh, come on up by us," and they were moving 12 to 15 a day. But he had access to a private piece that was marshy.
You're gonna have to come up to my new 32 acres because it's gonna be. I have a feeling it's gonna be it's gonna hold a lot of woodcock in the
Yeah,
spring.
hopefully. Yeah, it'd be fun. I know I'm gonna try to get up to the cabin at least for maybe a long weekend or kind of midweek if I don't have work, but I'm sure that won't be the case. But yeah, last year I walked 1 hour. Basically drove up in the morning, checked on the boat, ran the dog, hooked up the boat, and went home. So, but we moved one or two, and just kind of your traditional stuff. But that's again, northern Wisconsin. It's just, you don't have the CRP fields and prickly ash and stuff that we have down, Twin City area, within an hour of us or whatever. So, but yeah, hopefully we'll get out and work on the puppies a little bit. And I guess I don't like to push them too hard, but
Yeah, you don't. I push mine way harder than you sometimes.
well, not to blame the woodcock, but they are incredibly cooperative for dogs.
Too cooperative.
Yeah. So I'll kind of, run them. Hopefully we'll bump into a dozen or so, but
The older one really has taken too much of a liking to woodcock.
Yeah.
It kind of hinders her when she finds a grouse.
yeah, it was funny. My puppy this year did really good on woodcock the first 2 weekends, and we had the snow.
Yep.
She could care less about a woodcock almost at that point, but really started doing well on grouse. And it's like, wow, half of you thinks like, okay, that's great. She's doing really well on grouse. But then it's like, well, these woodcocks should be so darn easy for them. But part of me is like, with the snow, I don't know if they just see you coming and you can see their tracks running all over the top of the snow. But
To be honest, though, we didn't move that many woodcock this
Man,
year.
we
This
had-
year during grouse camp.
man, we had one day, my buddy and I, in 2.5 hours, moved 40.
Oh, we had.
And
really,
I think I only had 4 points
we had,
out of all those.
yeah, we had really
So
good. First, early on in the season, I went opening weekend. Took
Okay.
the dogs north of the Twin Cities to an area, and was okay. And then
Sure.
that second trip we had went out in western Wisconsin, and yeah, I mean,
Just everywhere.
it was
yeah.
just like they must have dumped down from up north.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, I think
and
that's
I think they
snow.
got out of here pretty quick this year in comparison to some of the years past.
Yeah, yeah. They seems like where we were, they kind of trickle through. I mean, usually second week in October, you can count on finding
Oh yeah,
a dozen birds a day, if that's the habitat you're kind of seeking. And yeah, this year it was kind of mid-October when we had that snow. They were around for a week, and then they got out of there. And we'd still find two or three,
Oh.
but I think we just started kind of shifting gears more. And
yeah. I mean, I found a straggler here and
Yeah,
there, but I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
it's nothing for my dogs to get 5-6 points on a woodcock during the morning if they're in
yep,
and you're hunting that cover. I
Yep.
mean,
yep.
it's when they're in
Yeah.
thick up in that particular
Yeah.
area.
Well, like I said, we had the week before that snow. My buddy and I were running both the puppies, and we hit one little strip, and we had, yeah, pretty much. It was, we kind of walked the trail because it was an area I hadn't hunted in years, and it had grown up, and so didn't really remember it. But we finally said, I was like, I'm just going to go down there, and because both the dogs kept wanting to go down there, and I think within a half hour we had 5 points, and so I was like, well, why don't we switch so you can see your dog working? And we switched, and he moved 4 or 5, 6 more. I don't even know what, but the piece we really wanted to hunt, some guys were in, and it was, I mean, we must have heard 30, 40 shots.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think they were probably missing a lot because it sounded kind of like the same guns. You'd hear 2 shots and 3 shots quite often, but that was what we were able to hunt.
If you hear that and anywhere near me, I'm missing. So.
That's kind of what I thought. We saw the trucks parked there, but yeah, I mean, I think
Sure it wasn't me?
Yeah, no, I'm positive. I've told you about that spot, and you haven't found it yet. But
Well, no, it's not that I haven't found it. I just haven't gone over there.
Yeah,
I've got so many spots that I keep finding myself.
Yeah, no, that's part of the game too. Is
That's half the reason
finding
why
new
I
stuff.
go. I love that adventure of just beating a new path.
Yeah,
To me, it's the most rewarding.
Yeah.
When you do actually, get a bird in the vest and you
yeah.
look
You
back at the
put in the
truck.
work of researching it, and it actually works out. It's like, oh, this is fun.
It's one thing I could run around and hunt all the spots you showed me, and I'd feel bad because I know you hit them and they're your spots, and
Yeah.
then B, it's the whole thing about upland hunting, the whole thing about grouse hunting. It's a public land sport, and
Predominantly, absolutely.
yeah, and it takes you into places that I don't know you're just not normally in.
No.
And so I constantly look for that kind of adventure seeking or looking around the bend. What's around the next corner?
Yeah.
And I don't know that whole part about not laying boots on the same piece of ground. You can do that in grouse hunting, and
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
I don't think I think I hunted 2 spots out of some of the newer stuff a little closer to home that I've been hunting.
Sure.
2 spots this season that or twice that I went in the
Right.
same spot.
Yeah.
Everything else was different,
Yeah.
and I really liked that this year.
Yeah, and I'm hoping this year to change that. I mean, with 2 puppies, my buddy's puppy and my pup, it's kind of like, geez, you're finding birds here. And even if you're not shooting them, that's perfectly fine. But they're giving the dogs an opportunity, and we definitely went and found new spots or spots that, I maybe hunted 10, 12 years ago, and they got cut and just weren't really worth it. Well, the last couple of years and this year, they've really been worth hunting, and it's been fun, and so it's you can look at cut maps all day long, but like you said, you still got to go and figure them out and see if they're worth anything yet. I mean, they just might be too young. It seems like you get some of these pieces are cut and they take forever to get prime, and some of them are like 3 years later they're ready to go. And
I know.
I mean, we've got stuff from when we moved there bought a place up there 18, 19 years ago on roads you were able to drive. They were cut that year, and you can walk back there and they're still just like, they're just not growing. It's just like, it's like, what's happening? And you go to another spot, it's like, oh, that was cut 5 years ago. And it's like, oh, it's ready to go. But yeah, it's, you start thinking back on your memory bank, and obviously I've been up there longer than you have. And so it's,
oh yeah, you've got, I mean, half the spots I call as new spots are probably spots you've hunted over the years.
General areas. Yeah. And so I still like to, early in the year when there's a lot of leaves, I like to go back to some spots that maybe I don't hunt as much and just kind of take a temperature reading and see what's there. And sometimes you're pleasantly surprised, and sometimes it's like, yep. I'll usually give a spot.
We'll go a different direction tomorrow.
Yeah. I usually like to give a spot twice. And you should move a couple birds. And if it's one, then you look, it's like, well, how long did I walk? Well, that was only half hour. It's like, well, maybe that's a good little quick something. And, but if you're walking 3 hours and you're only moving 4 or 5 birds, maybe it's worth
moving a little further.
Yeah. Finding
north,
something
west,
else.
South, east,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Maybe just letting that one sit for the year and trying it next year and just seeing what happens.
I've had it though, where they won't be there at all during the early season, and then that change happens.
Oh,
and all of a sudden, then they're there later in the season.
Yeah, I have
heavy,
a lot of spots like that, which I always tell people, it's like I can walk those all day long. Last week in September, early October, and you might move 1 or 2, and as soon as those leaves start to come down. That fall shuffle maybe starts happening a little more for grouse, and all of a sudden you're moving 8, 10, 12 birds. It's like, oh, okay, it's you can't explain it. Maybe they're running more. Maybe they're grouped up more still in those family coveys. I don't know, but
well, I do have to say that my goal for these things was to keep them a little shorter and sweeter.
Sure.
And we've been at this a while now already.
Oh.
So I'm going to leave you with one last question.
Sure.
When are you coming on the podcast next?
Maybe mid-season next year. We'll have to do it at grouse camp or
season, or that was kind of why I asked.
Season wrap up or something.
I was thinking, this equipment's fairly mobile. I was kind of thinking maybe we should, depending on how this whole thing goes, if I can get the podcast going to a point where there's actually people listening.
Yeah.
Maybe we could bring this up and do a little, grouse camp review.
Yeah, that one might be a little more wilder. Need a little more editing here, but
that's okay.
All in good fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I have a bunch of people up there. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, no, it would be fun. It'd be fun. I definitely envision kind of taking this thing on the road.
Yeah.
As we kind of travel around here and
get
into a couple different things this season. So
yeah.
No, I really thank you a lot, Jeff, for coming over.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
We had a bunch of things to talk about, and I think we covered most of them.
Yeah.
For the most part. We'll have this. I'll put this in the file, and we'll revisit it next time we sit down.
Yeah. See what actually happened this fall here. So
I'll have to get an update from you here in a couple weeks once the woodcock starts showing up.
Yeah.
I might, this nifty equipment, I can actually call you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so I can, maybe 5 minutes to get your little woodcock update from you once, and see how things are going if need be. Otherwise, yeah, we'd like to definitely try to keep you as a little bit of a rotating guest here, because I just don't know anybody who hunts as much as I do.
We do enough hunting together.
Yeah,
and
then
it's
you're
kind
like
of an easy one.
You rival me some seasons, So my wife thinks I'm a nut, and I can't imagine what your wife thinks of you once in a while. But
I don't want to ask, but she knows what she got into when we
started
dating.
I tell everybody the same thing about my wife.
Yeah.
I've made very specific to her about how I live my life.
Yeah.
And if you want to spend more time with me in the fall, you better take up hunting.
Yeah, be my guest. Love to have you. So, well, that's a fun thing. I know we've had our wives out, and they don't hunt as much as we do, but you get them out for a weekend.
Katie's a better shot than my wife, but hey,
she has her moments, but yeah, she when she gets on, she can do well. So she has fun with it, and that's all you can really ask for. And hopefully we'll get her down to Kansas here, just because it is her uncle and her cousin are there, and we've had her dad down there, and so it's always good to hunt with family. And
I want to get my wife out to the prairie sometime doing some hunting. We did the Western Minnesota opener, and she really likes that landscape, but she just she's never seen a covey rise, so I
Yeah,
want to
I've
put her
got
on that.
Yeah, I've got a number of people. I know my brother's getting a puppy this couple months here.
John is?
Yep,
Yeah,
he's
nice.
He's getting a setter, and
Oh, cool.
Yep, so
Oh, he must have had a lot of fun grouse hunting last year. Then.
yeah, I got quarantined end of November, early December, and he came up and he got to walk in on a couple points and got one. It was a perfect point shot retrieve, and he was just like, okay, this is fun. And his kids really showing an interest to it, and
yeah, they're at that age too.
yeah. So I think it's just kind of he wants his kid to be involved in something in the outdoors. He's more of a fisherman by far.
Oh yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, he's happy his kids are having an interest outdoors.
Anything you can do to get the kids away from the video games.
Well, it gives me access to another dog. So
hey, there you go.
So I'm not gonna scoff at that one or turn that one down. So
well. Awesome, man. I thank you again so much for coming over. This has been fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Hope it's been fun for you, and
yes,
and we'll do it again sometime.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, man.
Thanks.
Thank you. It is a way of life. This podcast was brought to you by Amaazen Outdoors. We specialize in putting together memorable experiences in the woods and in the field. Reach out to us at brian@amaazen.com. That's BRIAN at AMAAZEN.com. brian@amaazen.com. Thank you again so much for listening. Keep an eye out for the next episode.